Good afternoon, students. Welcome to the lecture on decision analysis. We have, including this lecture, we have 4 more lectures. So let's very quickly see as to where exactly we are in terms of our course handout. You see here, introduction is done, how do we decide is done, defining a good decision is done, heuristics is done, decision traps are done. Judgment in crisis is what is going on now. I had actually told you that I would close the session, the simulation this afternoon, but I see a few students are still attempting, so I thought we will do the debriefing tomorrow. And I remind you that if you don't complete it by this time tomorrow, you will not be able to access it after that. Because once I complete the debriefing, there is no big charm in doing it. Okay? So I suggest all of you, audio is lost. Is it the case with everyone? I don't know why the audio is lost. Is it just a matter of now it's back? Okay, right. Okay, fine, right. It could be a temporary issue. Right. I suggest that anyone who has not completed, I think several of you have completed it. Anybody who has not completed, please complete it by 2 o'clock tomorrow. If it is after that, then I will disable. It is set to disable, so you will not be able to access it after 2 o'clock. If any of you have not done it, please complete it. And we will do our debriefing tomorrow, and it's a very important lecture. So suggest all of you join the debriefing. If you really want to know as to what you have performed, have you learned to manage the cognitive biases? Then you should watch it. Attend the debriefing lecture tomorrow, wherein I will tell you as a group what is the right approach, where we can know that if we were impacted by the cognitive bias. As I mentioned, there are some plots, traps in the simulation. So were you really impacted by it, or you were conscious of it, was something that we would be able to see in the debriefing tomorrow. So please attend the lecture tomorrow. So we will see the judgment in crisis tomorrow. What we have already seen decision frame. What is left out is alternative, values, information and reasoning, and implementing decision analysis models, which is about the ethical distinction, situations, etc. So what I intend to do is, this lecture between 2 and 4, we will talk about values. Ideally speaking, we should be talking about values, and then we should talk about alternatives, and that is what we are going to do. Even hierarchically, if we see how the process takes place, first is the value which is driving the alternative. So we will first see the values, though it is slightly jumbled in the handout. Next semester I will correct it. So we will see values. Then tomorrow we will see judgment in crisis debriefing. And then the remaining 2 lectures, we will see alternatives, information and reasoning. So these 3 we will complete into 2 lectures. For some reason, if we are unable to complete it, then we may have to have 1 lecture during the first week of April, is what we will see, but we will see if it's really needed or not. Implementing decision analysis models is something which I will cover as we do the reasoning as well. Okay, and the ethical distinctions, considerations, etc. we will do in this lecture, that is today's lecture, when we are talking about values. Okay, so this is how we will do. It will say that the audio comes and goes. Is that the case with others? there a problem with the audio? Is the audio okay now? Audio available? Okay. Right. I think it is a temporary issue. Let's wait. Right. Let's move on. Ethical values. Okay. We discussed. Why are we discussing about the ethical values? That is that file that I get one small. This one which is missing here. That is that. This ethical value. Okay. I just put one picture here which is missing now. Anyway. Right. Why are we talking about the ethical value now? Okay. Let's see this. In the decision, the factors impacting the decision, we had identified several factors which impact the decision. And if we control those factors, then the quality of decision will be good, is what we saw. Okay. One of that was the decider. The second was the value. Third was the alternatives. Fourth was the information, reasoning, etc. Right? So all these factors, and of course the cognitive bias forms a part of the decision maker. So this is so we are seeing one by one each of the factors, how they impact the decision, and how are we going to make sure that its impact is positive on the decision quality is what we are seeing. Now we have seen the decider, right? Now we are proceeding to see the values. Right. This particular set of slides is taken from a book called Value Focused Thinking by Raskini. Okay, this is a Harvard published book. I would not suggest you go and read this book because it's a little voluminous book, and what is essential for decision analysis, decision making, I have already pulled it out of that book, so I don't suggest you should read it. It's a bit voluminous and it can be a little dry sometimes. And typically of Americans, they have tried to take this value, try to construct some equations and then try to solve some problems, etc., which is not very relevant to the pragmatic situations. So I would suggest you don't have to buy this book or read this book, unless otherwise you decide to do your research in value-based decision making, right? Right. This is a slide which I shared with you in one of the lectures earlier when we discussed about the various factors that impact the decision quality, and one of the factors was values. So we used this, and I don't have to repeat this slide. This is already seen. Even the 2 videos that I have shared is already seen by you, so I don't have to repeat that now. And I also explained to you that how the value impacts the entire decision making process is what I explained to you using this picture. First, it is the status quo. You feel uncomfortable to remain in the status quo, right? You feel that maybe the house that I am living is no more comfortable for me. The job that I am working is no more comfortable for me. The relationship I have with a particular person is no more comfortable for me. So this way you feel that when I say relationship, it always doesn't mean that it's the spouse relationship. When we were kids, we had some friends, and as we grew, we found that they were not the right friends, and we found new friends. And as we grew further, to adulthood, we found some more friends, and this way we keep finding the existing status uncomfortable. And when you feel the existing status uncomfortable, what you do? You get a kind of conflict in your mind. Right? You are using something, but what you expect is different from that. So there is an amount of conflict, and that conflict leads to alternatives. So what you do when you get a conflict, you want to get out of that conflict, so you start looking for alternatives. From that or those alternatives, you evaluate the alternatives and pick your choice. And this choice is the decision making. And when you do that, when you pick your choice, you implement it. And I told you, when we in our course as well as in practice, when we say a decision is something wherein you commit a resource irrevocably, is what is a decision. Actionable thought is the decision that we say. So we commit a resource irrevocably, so that becomes our new state. So you will continue to be there in the new state. After some time, that will become the status quo, and you will again find a conflict. Then it will lead to alternatives. So this cycle will keep on rolling, and this is how we evolve as individuals. And the value is the one which is acting as the central theme, the axis over which the entire cycle revolves. And the entire each of these elements in the cycle is influenced by the value. If you just think through it, you will understand that. So how does it influence? First, how does it flow? How does it? The hierarchy of the decision making is what we have seen. First, you frame the problem. You find out as what is wrong with me, what is wrong with the situation, what is wrong with this person, what is wrong with this job. Okay, these kind of things is what you start questioning, and that is what is the frame. So the status quo, questioning the status quo is actually framing the problem. Then your value, though it is permeate, it is it permeates entire sets of the hierarchy. The value is the one which is going to drive you to identify alternatives. The value is the one which is going to propose decide your preferences. Okay, there is nothing wrong with various alternatives, but why do you select only certain alternatives and leave out certain other alternatives? Because of your preferences, and the preferences are driven by the values. When you decide to buy an automobile, okay, you have the entire choice of purchasing any automobile of your choice, right from an Alto to a Mercedes Benz. While there are certain physical factors that make you decide a particular automobile, within that you will find that a Mercedes Benz is more comfortable to use, and you may even be able to afford it because of the bank loan and things like that. But still you don't go for it because your value system does not allow you to invest such a large sum for a luxury like this. For you it is a luxury, for somebody else it is a necessity, right? Where is the difference? The difference is emerging out of the value system, right? It is not exactly based on the affordability, but it is based on the value system. Then so the value drives the preference, the preferences drive the alternatives, and from the alternatives you pick the choice after doing an analysis of the alternative. So this is how the values influence. Right. Let's move to this one. This is an example. I don't know how many of you like Gandhi. Okay, if you like Gandhi, you use this as you look at this as a living example. Okay, if you like the character Gandhi, you take use him as an example. If you don't like him and you have prejudiced opinions about him, just treat it as a fictitious character developed by David Attenborough. Okay, that is what I would suggest. So don't get into the debate of whether Gandhi was an ideal person or he was just boasted to be that way, etc. We will not get into that discussion. Something like Ramayana and Mahabharata. We just treat this character as a fictitious character if you don't like him, okay, in physical form. Right. This is an example I'm using. I picked some of the examples from the movie Gandhi because this is how I learned the value-based decision making when I was taught. Okay, so I thought I liked it, so I just adopted it. Right. There was a registration act called the Asiatic Registration Act. Okay, and it is as per that I have already written that the Asians, that is both Indians and Chinese, should carry a what is called an identity card, which would have our thumb impression, and we could be asked to show it, and we were treated like outcasts, is what the act. And this was the act that was imposed by Smudge, General Smudge. Now just watch this. You might have watched this movie also. Watch this video as to how Gandhi took a decision and what was the value system that was driving him to take instantaneous decisions on very complex things, and just compare it with the current politicians as to why we are not able to make such instantaneous decisions on very important things. Right? Let's just watch it. I will explain it to you.
You will be surprised. It has been all over the place. We thought they would be too afraid of age. Yeah. I don't know who they have left out there to do the work. As it is women, my wife is happy to be tonight. And the law then arrested her and 4 others. It split the government. Well, that's one victory. If we hold firm, it won't be the last. Don't worry. I've never seen that. You have given them a way to fight. Daisy! I want Daisy! Which let me give it? Mrs. Gandhi. I thought we might have a little talk. Thank you, Daniel. Will you have a glass of sherry? Thank you. No. Perhaps not. I dine. Please, you can dine. Mr. Gandhi, I've already decided to ask the House to repeal the act that you have taken such exception to. Well, if you ask General Smudge, I'm sure it will be done. It's not quite that simple. I expected not. I thought of calling for a royal commission to investigate the new legislation. I think I could guarantee they would recommend the act to be repealed. I congratulate them, but they might also recommend that all future Indian immigration be severely restricted and stopped. Immigration is not an issue on which we fought. The wrong of us make it one now that we are in a position of advantage. I'm ordering the release of all prisoners within the next 24 hours. You yourself are free as from this moment.
Okay, that's the video. I don't know if the audio was clear to you, but very briefly let me tell you that this act, many people were arrested and it became more or less a major problem for the British government, so they decided to repeal it. But they did not want to simply repeal it, but I'm sharing the link, you can watch it later also, but I tell you the story behind it, the concept behind it, the learning behind it. Okay, so what they tell him is that he asks that this will be repealed by the committee that has been formed, but that committee might as well recommend that the immigration of Indians be very severely restricted or even stopped, which means that the Indians would not be able to travel to UK. Was the condition on which he says this. The time Gandhi took to take this decision as to what to say, if you just imagine in the current scenario, in the current political situation, if such a question is asked by someone to the government, how many months or weeks that the thing will be debated at various levels, and then the decision would still not be taken. But look at the time it took for Gandhi to make a decision, and it was fully driven by the value that he had, the value-based decision that I mean to say. He just thinks about it, and I'm just repeating whatever he says, that immigration is not a point on which we fought. The repeal of this Asiatic Registration Act is the one which on which we are fighting now. Immigration is not a point of our fight. So it will not be appropriate for us to demand that at a time when we are at an advantageous position, is what he says. So this is a value-based decision. For making this decision, he takes only a few minutes or a few seconds because it is driven by the value. And when decisions are made by values, based on the values, you will not have a major conflict. But when you move out of the value and then try to take a decision is a time at which you really get confused and we struggle to make decisions. So that is what I wanted to tell you, right? Now I'm going to narrate you a story, okay? This is another important story that we use for teaching the value-based decision making and its impact in the organization decision making, okay? At this semester I'm I'm narrating the story, but by the next semester we will have a simulation developed on this so that the students can play it as a simulation and learn it by themselves. So let's see what the story is. There is a young lady, okay, and he is her fiancé, okay, both of them are going to get married. They have been loving for some time. Both of them have decided to get married. Then this guy is the friend of this guy, okay, he is his friend. This guy's friend is this guy, okay, and there is an old man and there is a boatman, okay, boatman. All of them, these four of them travel by this boat. What happens is that they take the boat and get into the water. After some time something happens because of storm or whatever, the boat sinks in the water body. And after some time this girl wakes up and she finds herself to be in a shore, right? And she somehow manages to get up and see that she is able to find this guy, her would-be friend, this old man, both of them lying on the shore. And she also finds this boatman sitting in a corner, just relaxing. He somehow managed to escape. So she goes to help this friend and this guy and this old man, and both of them get up and nothing major happened to them. But unfortunately, she could not find her fiancé. So what happens is that she starts looking for him around that shore. She is unable to find him. Then, but after, at a distance, she finds another small island, and she finds a guy of his height walking around in that island. So she somehow thinks that it could be her fiance. So what she does is that she goes and tells the boatman to get the boat ready so that they can he can ferry them to that island. And for that the boatman says that yes, I can do, but what is in it for me is what he asks. Why should I do this is what he asks. Then she explains the whole story to him and then says that okay, whatever money that you need, I will give you once we go back home. You know that now we have lost everything in the sea, we don't even have anything to eat. So I will give you whatever money that you want when we go back. But now please help me, take me to that island. I think it is that guy is my fiance only, is what she says. He does not accept, and finally he tells his deal. He says that okay, I will take you there tomorrow morning. It will take a day for me to repair the boat and take you there. But for doing that, you need to sleep with me this night, is what this boatman tells the lady. Okay, she gets shocked by that. How can somebody be so exploitive and try to make use of the situation? So she goes and tells this old man. This is what the boatman is saying. Can you please go and advise him so that he can take us there? The old man says like, I am myself very weak. I have not been eating, and I don't know myself. I myself don't know if I'm going to survive or not. Please don't bother me, is what this old man says. His friend, he goes and talks to the boatman, and boatman just refuses. So she had no other option. So what she does is that night she spends with the boatman. Next day morning, this boatman, as promised, gets the boat ready, take all of them and go to that island. Good that guy who was spotted there was none other than her fiance. So she goes and hugs him, and then both of them feel very happy that they have found each other. And while discussing, she narrates the entire thing that had happened in the previous day. Hearing this guy becomes so agitated, so angry, and he tells the girl that you have done such a shameful act. Nobody would have done this. You should have waited there. I would have somehow come. How can you do this? So since you are polluted now, I don't want to take you anymore. I cannot even imagine taking you, is what he says. And I don't want to see you, you can go, is what this guy says to the girl. And what this girl does is that she can't do anything, so she just goes and sits and then cries. That time, this friend goes to her and tells her that, holding her hand, he tells her, don't worry, I will take care of you, is what he says. Okay, so that is the story. Don't expect anything more to happen. So that is the story. Now, the question for you is that in a classroom setup, what I would have done is that I would have asked you to independently write your answers. Your question is, who is the most ethical person in this, and who is the most unethical person? Think about it for 1 minute. Go with whatever information I have provided. Don't assume anything more. Ramesh says the most unethical person is the boyfriend. K.K. Verma says the lady is ethical, fiance is unethical, boatman is unethical, the girl is the most ethical person, and her fiance is the most unethical, the girl is ethical, friend is more ethical, unethical is the fiance, ethical is the friend. Okay, so now, good. Most unethical is the boatman. Cheryl, you are right, Cheryl. So each one of us will pick one. Okay. Suppose I form a team of 5 randomly picked up from your this one and ask you to argue among yourselves and then come out with a consensus, what will happen? I randomly pick 5 people from the students and ask them to discuss for say 15 minutes or 45 minutes or whatever, and ask them to bring to a come with a consensus. What will happen, you think? If I form a group randomly and ask you to discuss among yourself, okay, and come to a consensus, it is very, very unlikely that you will be able to come to a consensus, because each one of you will have a different value system, and the value system is not changed by a mere discussion, group discussion or arguments. Okay, it just stays with you right from a very early days, and it does not change so easily. Okay, now I give you a condition on which you have to bring, you have to come to a conclusion. Okay, and the condition, the ethical statement that I give you, based on which you have to identify who is the most ethical and who is the most unethical. Suppose I give you a statement. The statement is that a friend in need is a friend indeed. Is what a value system statement. Okay, value statement, isn't it? A friend in need is a friend indeed is the value statement. So if I give you this as a statement, will you be able to come to a conclusion? So if you have we cannot say boatman is as really exploited her, correct? So this is one argument, okay Ramesh? This is one argument, and the same way each one of you can argue for your answer forever. So what I do is that, anybody in this whole thing, who is the friend? Anybody can be the friend, but the value statement that I am making is independent of this story. A friend in need is the real friend, is what all of us, if we agree, then will we be able to come to a conclusion? From the friend, the girl's point of view, who will be the friend? The friend will be her boyfriend, right? And who will be the other friend? The friend will be his friend, right? So this way, if you frame the problem, then with a value statement like the friend in need with a friend in need, then you will be able to come to a conclusion, right? And this is exactly what happens in an organization as well. Organization may, you will have many ethical dilemmas. You will have similar situations, not exactly like this that somebody is sleeping with someone else, but you will have situations wherein you may have to fire a couple of team members because of their poor performance, and those poor performers may argue that it was not their own making, but because of the organizational infrastructure, etc. So it can go on and on. So you may come across a situation wherein you are not able to make a decision whether it is good to fire someone or not. Similarly, there can be several other decisions that you may have to make, which are not, one is you making that decision, and the second one is you selling that decision to your team members. For example, you may decide to confirm a few employees and not confirm a few other employees. One challenge is that you making that decision, and the second challenge is you informing that to your team members. So how will you do that? When you do this, If you give it to the team and then decide, they will never be able to come to a conclusion. So you may have to make a decision by yourself and support it with a value statement even before disclosing the decision. For example, in an organization which I underwent, about 8 people had to be sacked, and some of them were very good friends of mine, and they had their problems, but we could not exactly attribute all their problems to their own behavior. There were other problems outside their behaviors as well, but we had to sack. And one is sacking them, and the second one was to inform the other team members that we are taking this decision. So if you do not sell this decision correctly to your team members, then your team will be demoralized. They will feel really upset, and it will be very difficult to get the job done by them because they will always look at you with a mind of suspicion. Right? So you have to, when you are explaining it, if you leave the decision to them, there can be several situations wherein the team would not be able to come to a consensus because of the ethical dilemma. So maybe at those times you have to make a decision, and when you make a decision, you will go with one value statement, and when you are explaining your decision, you will first explain the value statement based on which you took a decision, and then you explain your decision. Then you will be able to assert your decision quite acceptable to the team. So this is one way of managing an ethical dilemma. Okay, so this is what I want to explain to you with this story. Let's move on to the next set of this. So what is the approach? This is the most unpopular story, that Bhopal gas tragedy. Right? What happened? Warren Anderson was the person who was not directly responsible, but who was responsible for this, because he, as a head of the organization, should have taken care of the operation, safety, etc. But more than that, when this tragedy happened, what actually he did was the one which makes us feel bad about him. He was actually arrested when the tragedy took place, and he was kept in house arrest for a few hours, maybe about 2 hours or so. The only thing that he found in that house was a telephone through which he could contact certain people, and through them they could reach to the United States. From there they claimed that there was pressure, and I think it was Arjun Singh, who was the chief minister of Uttar Pradesh at that point of time, and who quoted Rajiv Gandhi to be the person to release him to appease the United States, the business, else the Indian business situation would become very bad and things like that. And he flew out of the country and he never came back. Right? Now, the decision that Warren Anderson took was just look at that decision from a moral or an ethical perspective. Right? What was the ethical statement or the ethic, right, the value system that made him take that decision, is something that you need to look at it from that perspective, right? When you do that, this is what happens. When you are faced with a difficult decision situation, start by thinking about your values. Don't think from alternatives, but look at the way in which the decision making would have happened in the case of Warren Anderson. He had looked at the alternatives. What are all the alternatives that I have with me? I can stay in house arrest, and then it will go through a judicial process in which I have to prove guilty or prove not guilty, and then take the response. So the alternative is that I go back to my country. So when you go with the alternatives, this is what you will start looking at. Your decision is just focused on your own welfare. But when you look at it from a value proposition, okay, from a value-based decision, value statement, then you will not look at the alternatives, but you will start looking at what would be appropriate for a situation. I tell you what, Warren Anderson was not a bad person. He did not decide to kill 50,000 people. It so happened. And the alternative that he took was this. He took an alternative approach and then he flew out of the country. But you really think that he would have lived a very peaceful life in his home? If he had a value system, then he would not have, right? So when you take a decision based on alternatives, particularly in an ethical dilemma, then you can land up in a more messier situation than if you had actually taken a value-based decision, right? So ask what you hope to achieve in the decision context you faced. Evaluate each one of them against your value system. This is a very complex decision that he had to make and the time was very short. But we come across several very simple decisions wherein our ethical system is opposing the decision that we take. So when you take such decisions, you have to go through these steps. It helps uncover our hidden objectives which are submerged in our consciousness. So when you have to take a decision which has an ethical dilemma, just practice it for one situation, then you will understand how easy it is to make a decision when you take it from a value based. Once you make the decision, you will never repent for it when you do it from a value based decision making. I don't know if his value system ever Pharma is so curious that he wants to know who is ethical and who is unethical. And if I give an answer, that is based on my value system. Okay, so there is, in many situations there are no right or wrong answers, and that is the reason why ethical dilemma or value-based decision is so complex, so difficult, and it is so personal. But I tell you that if you decide based on your value system, you will not repent for it. Whatever be the outcome, you will not repent for it. But if you don't do it, you will always repent for it. Very small things also. Okay. So why we should do the value-based decision? Something is that I mentioned that it helps internally for your own personality development. It helps. But in an organization, it has several advantages. One is values improve communication. You know, a mission statement is something which actually declares the organization value. And it considers the organization as a personality and then declares its value. And when the organization declares its value, then you will find that the decisions that are taken will be very easy. I mean, the executives can make the right decisions without too much of difficulty. So most public problems, values rather than facts are the aspect of problem about which many members of society will have knowledgeable viewpoints. People do not really worry about the fact. They are worried about the value. For example, take for example the Maggie fiasco. Okay, what happened in Maggie? The fact was that it contained certain unpermitted chemicals, right? That is the statement. Now, Maggie has come back. How many of you now use Maggie? Or how many of you have banned Maggie completely from your life? If as a person it is different, but if you see the overall, people would not really worry about a stray instant wherein they found something bad in their product, which the company recovered and then they have reintroduced, and still there are many people who continue to buy it. Okay, is it wrong to do it? May not be. If you take some samples, it may be all right. What did it happen? You don't consume Maggie anymore, but I consume. This is a fact. Okay, the presence of certain chemicals in the product is a fact, but I look at it from the value. Does Nestle actually not have values, and they want to they want to really harm the people who are consuming their products. Not this has happened, and what is it they do to overcome that is what many people see, and then they decide based on that. Okay, so it is the value for which the people give importance than the facts that they come across in a few occasions. Right. I mean, I'm not, they don't want to intentionally do it, yeah, and it so happened, okay. You, Volkswagen is, yes, it's the same case with Volkswagen as well. Toyota, all right, in Toyota, how many cars have been, it is the I mean, it is the company which has called for, I mean, called back, I mean, the maximum number of cars for defective parts. Then it says that Nestle had a value issue is what. This is a perception. Okay. If you feel that they have a value issue, you will more or less ban them for their for your life. If you feel that their value system is okay, but it is only a matter of fact that it happened, then you would reconsider going again back to them. Right. So this is, so facts are okay, but values are the most important thing is what all of us take into consideration while making a decision. Okay, so I mean, I'm not going to explain this midday meal scheme. What the idea, what I had behind this was that when you work from a value-based decision, you don't really look at the feasibility of certain decisions. You take the decision based on the value and then try to find the resources for implementing it, rather than looking at okay, if I have to do something, it will not be feasible. For example, the Bhopal gas tragedy, right? If you go with the facts or the feasibility, okay, now that this has happened, what possibility do we have? If you start with that, then this is what you will do. Like Warren Anderson, you will fly out of the problem. Run away from the problem. But if you look at it from a value perspective, that okay, 50,000 people are impacted, what is it we have to do at this situation from a value perspective, then you will see that okay, I am going to save as many people as possible. Then you will start working towards that rather than running away from the problem. So that is the difference between a fact-based decision and a value-based decision. If you always work with fact-based decisions, you will look at feasibility as the constraints as the first thing before you take a decision. Will it be possible, if I take the decision, will it be possible for me to implement is what you will start thinking. But if you look at it from a value-based response, you will think that this is the right thing to do now, right? This, so I will take this decision. Is it possible to implement? I will find a way for implementing it. I may not be able to do it 100%, but this is the right thing to do, so I will do it is what. For example, one more example which is very close to my heart is Sachin Tendulkar taking decisions when he gets out. What happens when he gets out? Unless otherwise he himself is not very clear, he would not wait for the umpire's call, right? You have seen it several times when he plays. If he knows that he has licked the ball and if he sees that the wicket keeper has caught it, he will not even look at the umpire. He will simply walk out of the stadium. And this is the case even if in an extreme situation wherein his getting out would impair the success of the Indian team. He would not wait for it. What does it mean? This is the difference between the value-based decision and fact-based decision. If he looks at the facts, okay, if I get out now, then India is going to lose the match. So I should wait for the umpire's call. This way, if he thinks, then this is how his line of thinking will be. But for him, this is a game where if I get out and I know that I am out, I have to simply walk out. I don't need somebody else to tell me whether I am out or not. And this is a value-based system. Okay, so this is how somebody becomes so successful rather than just staying there, right? Combination drugs are banned. Yeah, this Vicks Action 500 something they have a ban now, and it is right. So the popular saying is that if a law is unjust, a man is not only right to disobey it, he is obligated to do so. So this is what the value-based decision making is. If you feel that there is no value in making a decision, and even if the situation warrants, you will not take that decision, is what it means. And this is how the non-cooperation movement was started in Gandhi's theory. Right. And this is another video which you can watch. I don't have to do it again. Okay, then the second important advantage of a value-based decision is that it facilitates multi-stakeholder decisions. If you are, I will tell you how. Many decisions, including those categorized as bargaining or negotiation with your suppliers, etc., involve multiple stakeholders who must interact to produce decisions. When you interact with, say your supplier, customers, and or his supplier, etc., when you discuss, each one of them have their own personal agenda, right? And all of them, when you have personal agenda, meeting the group agenda is something which is the most difficult thing. An organization agenda will be there, and the individuals who are working in the organization will have their own personal agenda. And when you form a team involving them, meeting their own personal agenda while meeting the organization agenda is something which is a very fine balancing act, which will be most of the time very difficult. And in such situations, the value-based decision will only work. How? Value-focused thinking sets a common platform on which discussions and decisions can be made. So you first set a value platform. Who is setting the value platform? The organization mission is the value platform. And when you work on that platform, you will find that the individual agendas are evened out and we have a common purpose to work for. If you as one participant explicitly include values in your analysis, how to implement a value-based decision is what is stated here. If you as one participant explicitly include values in your analysis, your decisions are value-driven, okay, rather than the alternatives. The appeal of the values will lend support to your choice of a particular alternative. When you work on the value-based system and not on your personal agenda, rest of the people have to follow the value-based system. They cannot stand outside. If they do it, they will be exposed. To support other alternatives, adversaries may be forced either to select values at odds. What they will do is that they will try to propose their own values with reasonable values in the analysis, or to question the adequacy of the reasonable factual data used in the analysis. So they may try to look for factual data to support their argument. But in either case, they will find that if you have a value-based analysis and if you have a value-based decision making, then it will actually weaken their position and all of them will concur with your decision. Okay, if this is too much of a theory for you, then you should watch this video, which again is taken from Gandhi. It's a very simple this one.
Okay, good. Let's walk. You're a clergyman? Yes. I met some remarkable people in India, and when I read what you're doing here, I wanted to help. Does it surprise you? Not anymore. At first, I was amazed, but when you're fighting in a just cause, people to pop up and right out of the state. But when it's dangerous,
yes, man, they will just play it up.
Perhaps we should, doesn't the New Testament say your enemy strikes you on the right cheek, I'll take the left? Well, I think perhaps the phrase was used metaphorically. I don't think it's I'm not so sure. I have thought about it a great deal, and I suspect it makes one show courage. Be willing to take a blow, several blows. So you will not strike back, nor will it be turned aside. And when you do that, it goes on something in human nature, something that with respect increased. I think Christ grasped that. I had to give it birth. Good morning.
You don't have time. That's true.
Echo.
Yes, sir.
What you doing? Nothing.
And that's what I was thinking. I say, what you doing?
We were just trying to clean up the neighborhood.
You're taking the work with me. I put you got 10 minutes ago. Get on!
You'll find there's room for us all.
So the point here he makes is that when you fight for a just cause, you see people popping up from every place in support of you, and when you believe in that cause, then rest of the people actually follow. That is what the story behind this video. And Manoj is sharing a video. Let us see what it is about. Business Sutra, Ramayana versus Mahabharata. Let me see this. Stick the ad.
What are the learnings that we can get to apply in the modern world from the Mahabharata and also from the Ramayana? And sometimes on first reading it looks that there are several contradictions into what is said in Mahabharata and what is said in Ramayana. Can you just explain that to us?
You see, Ramayana and Mahabharata are both considered itihas. Now, itihas is conventionally translated as history, but it actually means it's a tense agnostic term, which means so it was, so it is, and so it will be. That means it is timeless. Right. One. Second is, when you listen to the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, they exist in two different contexts, so they cannot be seen as equals. And that's the big mistake. The Western mind forces us to look at them as equals.
Why don't the two communicate the same message?
Because, see, you have standardization, not just standardization, but हमारा क्या स्वादानुसार है? एक स्वाद है द्वापर युग का, एक स्वाद है त्रेता युग का. So one is for the Treta Yuga, which is an earlier, more innocent age, and a later phase in the organization, which is darker, which is slightly more corrupt. Okay. Now, I have to do the principle of dharma again, just to revise. I have got plus, minus, 0, animal instinct. Right. This is exploitation. This is empathy. Right. Dharma is here, adharma is here. Right. Now let's do a simple 2x2 matrix to understand the Ramayana and Mahabharata. So you have rules on one side. Right. Rules are followed, rules are not followed. Okay. Then we have the principle on the other side, dharma. Dharma is upheld, dharma is not upheld. Right. Now look at the Ramayana. In Ramayana, dharma is upheld and rules are upheld at the same time. So you're Ram. So rules and dharma are aligned. Everything is about the other. Everything is about the other. Everything is about the other. Even at the cost of oneself. Even at the cost of oneself.
Almost always at the cost of oneself in the case of
almost always.
Yeah.
So it's misery in the forest, misery in the palace. His opposite is the great alpha male. Somehow people seem to like today. Tells you about time is Ravan.
No dharma, no rules.
No rules, no dharma. Your wife is my wife.
Right.
And I'm an animal. Even my son dies, I will not let go of my little toy. My brothers die, I will not let go of my little toy. That's Ravan. Now look at this same thing. Rules are broken, bending, and Krishna always bending the rules, breaking the rules, but the principle is intact. It's always for the other. Okay. Now let's look at the most favorite character, Duryodhana. He never breaks the rule,
but he's constantly violating the principle.
constantly violating the principle. He is holding the letter of the law, never the spirit of the law. Okay. This is the spirit. This is the letter. This is the belief. This is the behavior. The pretender.
Where does Yudhishthira fit in all of this?
Yudhishthira is someone struggling to be Ram. He moves from here to here. This is the journey of Yudhishthira. With the help of Krishna. You see, his honesty is about rules. He's not realizing it's not about rules, it's about principles. Right? Mahabharata is the story of focus on the principles. So when a woman is being disrobed, everybody is discussing legal matters. Is it okay or not okay to disrobe her? I mean, grow up. This is Bhishma and Drona watching a woman disrobed, and they are opposed to very educated people, and they are not doing anything.
This brings me to a very interesting issue. You said that the Ramayana comes from an older age, an age of more innocence. The Mahabharata comes from a darker age.
It's a more matured organization. It's a very early phase organization. Just tasted success. Everything is right. Market is right.
And the principles have just been created.
It's exciting and new. People are not smart enough to subvert it yet.
Right. Here, in this
Matured
case,
organization.
you've gone from principle to now a slightly more rule-focused organization.
The principles have been forgotten. Rules have become more important. Bureaucratic. Highly bureaucratic. Letter of the law. Spirit of the law is not there. Like any bureaucracy. All the rules are held, but people still don't have food. So the principle is forgotten. The woman is disrobed, but nobody is arrested.
Next week on Business Sutra.
Thanks, Manoj, for sharing that. Hope you enjoyed. Jyotsna Sravanti is asking a question: what to do in a situation when we just don't want to decide, a state of decision fatigue? I don't have an answer for it because I'm not. I'm a university professor trying to discuss the decision analysis. So I need to refer and then give you an answer rather than giving my own answer to it. Okay, Jyotsna. I mean, if as a friend, if you ask me, then maybe I can blabber something. But this being a course, I cannot tell you anything that is my own what to say, gyan. I don't give a gyan here. So I just share what the course says. So I just limit my discussion to that. And the concept of decision fatigue is something that I have to cover. Maybe I haven't included that, but I can include it in the maybe in the subsequent lecture. Okay, right. Interconnects decision. This is another. I mean, we are seeing what is the reason and what is the why should we have a value-based decision. One is it helps as a person, and the second one is it helps in the organization. So we have seen two reasons, and this is the third reason where it interconnects the decision. Interconnecting the decision means there is no conflict in our decision. A decision maker faces numerous situations. Okay, and if the way in which the factor which drives him to make decision is the same thing, then the decisions will be consistent. The factor that influences his decision is the same, then it will be consistent, and there can be only one such thing that will influence his decision, and it is the organization value. Okay, this means that alternatives chosen at different situations should not work at cross purposes, which you will find that in many organizations where the values are lacking, they will make a particular decision in a particular situation and they will do just the opposite in another situation. That is because it is not driven by the value system. I have worked in one such organization and I quit that organization for that reason. When you find that an organization value system or the lack of it is not fitting your value system, the best thing that you will do is move out of that organization. The value-based decision can create a platform on which decisions can be taken consistently. And this is one example which I wanted to share with you. With this slide, I think the value-based decision will be over. This is a little conceptual topic. So I'm just trying to give you some practical examples that I have come across which strengthened my value system. So this was in one of the organizations that I was working. This organization was struggling for orders. They did not have many orders. So what happened was that one of my boss that time was given in charge of this plant, and he was asked to make this plant the world class. So he started working on the equipment, the people, etc. And we actually went ahead and challenged. I was a part of that project. I was very happy to be associated with that project. And in the entire process, we went ahead and challenged the Deming Prize and won it as well. And the Japanese guys who came from the JUSE said that this was one of the best foundry. It was a foundry, and it was one of the best sand casting foundry that we have ever come across when we did the JUSE assessment. I mean, Deming assessment is what he mentioned. So we brought it from such a shamble to such a great facility. We then started working. Once you have such a good facility, obviously you will be able to seek to the customers some orders, and we went ahead and then we lacked certain technology for manufacturing certain automotive parts. So we went ahead and tried to tie up with another American company. They were interested in it, and they were ready to share their entire technology. So we were about to sign the MOU. That point of time, there was a conflict between the American company and the Indian head in which we were working. Because of that MOU could not be signed, and we could not enter into a technology agreement, partnership agreement with that company. Now that the technology was not available, we again came back to square one, and we could not get the orders. Finally, the MD of this company, Indian company, felt so bad about the whole thing. Despite working so hard, this has not yielded any result. So let us close down this foundry, is what they decided. And they did not want to sell the foundry to another person. They wanted to simply dismantle the foundry and sell the land, is what they decided, because it was in a prime location. Finally, that job was also given to my boss. And he, with his own effort, called the people who would cut the entire steel structure in the foundry one by one, and then dismantle the entire foundry. And everything was dismantled, including the old newspapers. They were all bundled and then given for weight, and every single bill was accounted. Total thing was settled. When the company decided to close down this foundry, there were 27 employees working in this organization. Okay, and these 27 employees, the company decided they would not be given another job in any other plant of this organization. They had totally 14 plants in the country, and they decided that they would not absorb this 27 people in any other company. Rather, they would be compensated for the closure, is what they decided. The reason for that was that people will somehow try to grab these 27 people out of sympathy and finally end up with a dead weight in each of the organization. That would lead to inefficiency, is what their belief was. So they decided that they would not offer a job to these 27, but they would be quite liberally compensated. Was the decision they took. Everything was done, and in the closing meeting, that the last meeting in the town hall is what we were having, and I was also there. And one of the stenographer, those days the stenos were there. When stenos means not that he was doing shorthand also. That guy asked, sir, there are 14 plants, and even if each plant takes 2 people, then we would be all the employed. We would not go without job, is what he asked. And for that, my boss did not have an answer, because it was more a given from the top management not to absorb anyone. And he simply said, like, that is right, what you are saying is right, but unfortunately we are unable to do it, is what he just mentioned. So that day, it was a sad day, everything got closed, and he put everything into a bundle, and all the bills, everything was made, and then it was given to the MD. And that day he the MD was really shocked. The reason for that was that this was just given as a project to this gentleman, but he finally submitting his resignation. So he said, like, I never wanted you to resign because we have so many projects coming up and I want you to work for us, is what the MD said. For that he said, like, I'm one of those 27 is what my boss said. And he never ever accepted a job offer from that company. And even as a consultant, I know how much of pressure he underwent to come out of that organization, not because he disliked the organization, but his decision was driven by his value system. And he said, like, when we decided that we would not employ any of them, I am one of those 27, so I will not be able to work for you. My conscience will not permit me to work for you, is what he said, and left. Beyond the point, the company also could not pressurize him, and they left him. And even now, he was not due for retirement, but he never joined any other company either after that. So that was one great experience wherein I realized how somebody can put in such a hard decision. And that point of time, he had 2 daughters, and both of them were yet to be married. And you can imagine the kind of social pressure he would be undergoing, and he decided to do this. So when your value system drives your decision, you don't really look at the consequences. You just take the decision. When alternatives drive your decisions, then you always look at consequences and you get confused, or you make the wrong decision. Okay. So this is the closing line. When we work with our guiding values, there are no confusions about our decisions. The decisions are very, very clear. When you get into the alternatives only, you actually start getting confused. So if I take this alternative, that will be the consequence. If I take this alternative, this will be the consequence. No, we never get into those lines. A good manager is one who works, who decides based on the value system rather than the alternative. And so should we just simply ignore the alternatives? No, those alternatives should be driven by the values. If that is the case, then the alternatives will be okay. But if you start looking at the consequences and then making decisions or identifying alternatives, you are never going to make a right decision. Right? Is that interesting? Right. Now what is the time? What I need to do is 3:15. Do you want to take a break so that I can cover the next topic, which is the objective values? We have seen the ethical value. Now we have to see the objective value, which is not going to take a lot of time. Very quickly we will go through and conclude it. So we will break for 5 minutes. It is 3:15. We will again start at 3:20, okay, and in 20-25 minutes time we will be able to conclude the second part. Let me break the recording.